Ethan Cole's small hand rested limply on the hospital bed, pale as the fluorescent lights above. The monitors had gone silent, a flat line stretching across the screen like a cruel, unbroken sentence. His mother, Marissa, shook, crying into her husband's shoulder, the sharp antiseptic smell of the pediatric ICU clinging to their clothes. Doctors murmured in corners, moving with mechanical efficiency, their eyes trained to hide the disbelief, the faint hope that lingered despite the impossible numbers. 6 years old, gone. And yet, even in that room, no one could explain why her gut refused to release the tiny ember of hope still smoldering in her chest. The crash had been sudden, a rented SUV skidding across wet desert asphalt during a rare thunderstorm in Nevada. Ethan had been strapped into his car seat, his father following minutes behind, unable to stop what happened. Rescue teams had arrived to a scene that looked like a nightmare stitched together from broken metal, twisted limbs, and mud-darkened rainwater pooling around the edges. EMTs had done everything in their power, adrenaline pumping and fingers shaking as they tried to revive him, but the machines didn't lie. His pulse had disappeared, and the monitors had confirmed it. Yet among the chaos, something strange had happened. One EMT, a young woman named Carla, had insisted she felt a faint rhythm as she pressed her ear to his chest. "It's just there," she'd whispered to no one in particular, a tremor in her voice. But the chief paramedic had dismissed it. "Flatline. He's gone. Nothing else matters." And so Ethan was loaded into the ambulance, silent, pale, his small body swaddled in a hospital blanket that smelled of antiseptic and rain. Hours later in the hospital room, the official declaration came. Marissa and her husband were told that their son's heart had stopped, his brain had ceased to function. He had been pronounced dead at 6:42 p.m., and the room seemed to shatter around them. Nurses averted their eyes as they documented the moment, the beeping from the other patients' machines underscoring the tragedy like a cruel symphony. Marissa sat there, gripping Ethan's hand, willing it to twitch, willing his eyelids to flutter. Anything. But then something impossible happened. A tiny shiver passed through Ethan's fingers like a whisper against Marissa's skin. Her heart leapt. She called out to the doctors, but they insisted she was imagining it, that shock and grief played tricks on the mind. She leaned closer anyway, feeling the faint warmth. "Ethan," she whispered, tears streaking her face. The fingers twitched again, and for a split second hope collided with disbelief. Despite the evidence, a part of Marissa refused to surrender. Late that night, alone in the hospital room after everyone had left, she kept talking to him. She recited the stories he loved, the ones about airplanes and space missions, her voice cracking as she laughed and cried at the same time. "You're going to fly someday," she told him, gripping his tiny hand. "Just hang on." And for the first time in hours, she thought she felt a pulse, a flutter, weak but undeniably there. But the hospital had rules. The machines had failed to register life, the paperwork had been signed, and no one had time for anomalies. The physicians insisted it was neurological damage from trauma, that any reflexes were meaningless. Marissa left the hospital that night, her husband holding her as she sobbed, dragging her heels across the sterile linoleum floors. Yet something lingered, an intuition, stubborn and alive, that Ethan was still in there somewhere. 5 years later, in a quiet corner of the Nevada desert, Marissa would often drive past the empty stretch of highway where the crash had happened. She still remembered the smell of rain and burned rubber, the twisted metal glinting in moonlight. And every time she passed, she imagined a boy with bright eyes staring back at her from the wreckage, refusing to leave. Her friends thought she was crazy. "He's gone," they said gently, shaking their heads. But Marissa refused the words, the certificate, the death. She believed that if she held on, the universe might bend, might deliver her child back in ways nobody could foresee. Meanwhile, high above the same desert 5 years later, an entirely different reality was unfolding. Inside a sleek, classified military operations room, a pair of F-22 pilots were hunched over control screens, their fingers tense on joysticks, eyes flicking to radar blips moving faster than anything registered. A voice, calm and childlike, crackled across secure channels. It was precise, almost polite, yet carried a weight that made seasoned combat pilots freeze mid-command. "Flight stable," the voice said. The words were simple, but the name that followed made their blood run cold. Ghost Rider. One of the pilots, Lieutenant Harris, frowned, leaning closer to the headset. He replayed the transmission, checking for interference, static, or a misread channel. Nothing. The frequency was clean. The timing was exact. And yet, the voice spoke as if it knew them, as if it had been waiting for this moment. "Who the hell is that?" muttered Sergeant Lawson, the other pilot, tension thick in his voice. He had flown missions in the Pacific, chased rogue drones, and survived combat simulations that left men shaking. Yet this was different. The name Ghost Rider was not just unauthorized. It was unrecorded in any military registry. It shouldn't exist. And yet it had appeared on their secure channel. Far below, the desert stretched endless, a pale canvas beneath stormy twilight. Somewhere hidden, someone or something was watching, moving with impossible speed and precision. The F-22s were trained to react to anything fast, anything hostile. But this didn't fit any known pattern. The pilot's instincts screamed at them. Whoever or whatever was Ghost Rider was neither entirely human nor fully machine, yet undeniably intelligent. And then, as suddenly as it began, the transmission went silent. The screens flickered, radar blips vanished. For a tense heartbeat, the room was filled with only the sound of breathing, the low hum of equipment, and the distant echo of thunder rolling over the desert. Lieutenant Harris rubbed his face. "We need identification. Right now," he said, his voice taut. But the voice would not give them that, at least not yet. Somewhere above, Ghost Rider had already moved, unseen and unrecorded, leaving only a whisper across the ether. A promise that whatever had been lost, whatever had been declared gone, might be coming back. And for the F-22 pilots, for Marissa, and for everyone tethered to this story of death and impossible survival, the question hung in the air. How do you fight, or even understand, a ghost that refuses to stay dead? The desert sky darkened as the storm approached. Somewhere inside it, a boy who had once been declared dead at 6 was waiting, watching, preparing. And the first pulse of history was about to ignite. The F-22s cut through the Nevada twilight like shadows stitched from steel and fire. Lieutenant Harris's hands gripped the controls so tightly his knuckles were white, his eyes locked on the empty blips where Ghost Rider should have been. Radar showed nothing, no transponder, no signature, no hint of human flight. Yet the secure channel had carried a voice, unmistakably alive, calm, and precise. The words echoed in Harris's mind. "Flight stable." Sergeant Lawson, normally unshakable, glanced at his partner. "We're not alone," he muttered. The tone was casual, almost understated, but his grip on the stick betrayed panic. They had trained for scenarios like this, unknown aerial threats, drones gone rogue, unidentified aircraft. But never had they faced a voice. Never had they faced the certainty that the voice belonged to someone who shouldn't exist. The operations center, miles below, was chaos wrapped in military precision. Officers barked orders, technicians scrambled over consoles, and analysts scrolled through radar feeds trying to reconcile reality with impossible data. Every now and then a small blip appeared, a shimmer against the desert night, but it moved too fast, too fluid to be tracked by standard instrumentation. And then the voice came again. "Don't be afraid," it said, polite, almost hesitant, yet layered with confidence that made seasoned pilots stiffen. Harris froze. Did it just say, "Don't be afraid"? He asked, voice trembling. Lawson swallowed. "Yes, and it's familiar somehow. That tone, I've never heard it, but it's human." The phrase hung in the air as if testing them. No one had clearance to engage. No one had protocols for a child piloting an experimental aircraft 5 years after being declared dead. And yet, the voice carried authority, calm control, and, against all logic, the presence of someone alive but untouchable. Meanwhile, miles away, Marissa Cole sat at her kitchen table, staring at her phone, which she had no right to possess. Classified military chatter occasionally bled into unsecured frequencies, And tonight a fragment had come through, faint but undeniable. She heard it, her son's voice, older, steadier, impossible. Her heart stopped, stomach twisting. "Ethan," she whispered, fingers trembling over the receiver, her mind leaping back to the hospital room, to the shivers that had defied science. Back in the sky, the two F-22s accelerated, weaving through streaks of cloud, chasing the impossible. Radar couldn't keep up. Flight instruments flickered as if the air itself had been rewritten. Harris's eyes darted to the HUD, tracking nothing. Yet the voice returned, calm and teasing, almost conversational. "Do you need a visual, or do you trust what you can't see?" Lawson swallowed, staring at the empty sky. I can't even." His words were cut off by the sudden blink of a shadow streaking alongside them. It moved too fast for a human pilot, too precise for a drone. The shape was small, sleek, metallic, but strangely organic in its motion, flipping and rolling like a leaf in a storm. Harris's heart hammered. Target confirmed, visual, but it's "what the hell is that?" The voice came again, soft but firm. "I'm cleared by someone higher." No one knew what that meant. The military had never authorized any child pilot, never allowed a civilian in experimental flight, certainly never sanctioned 5 years of secret preparation for a boy who should have died in a crash. And yet, here he was, commanding airspace without permission, without record, without warning. "Ghost Rider," Harris muttered, trying to keep his tone professional. "Identify yourself immediately." The response was a whisper through the comms, "You'll know me when you see me," and then silence. The jets continued their chase, instruments flickering under stress, adrenaline spiking. The unknown craft twisted, darted, and dove with impossible precision. Every maneuver obeyed physics yet defied human limitation. The F-22s struggled to keep pace, their engines screaming at maximum thrust, their minds running calculations they'd spent years mastering. Inside the cockpit of Ghost Rider's craft, Ethan's face was pale but composed, eyes wide and calculating. The boy who had once been declared dead at 6 now moved with surgical precision, understanding turbulence, wind currents, and the complex aerodynamics of the stealth jet in ways that defied his age. His small hands gripped controls not designed for children, yet every input was flawless. Years of hidden training had taught him not just to survive, but to dominate the sky. Above, the desert stretched endlessly, illuminated by the dying sunset. Clouds churned with the promise of an incoming storm, their shadows dancing across sand dunes. The F-22s tried every evasive tactic, every standard intercept protocol, yet Ghost Rider anticipated them all, slipping through radar holes, appearing and vanishing with the ease of a ghost. Back in the command center, the tension was suffocating. Officers whispered names of pilots long retired, missions long classified. Nothing made sense. How could a child, or anyone, survive 5 years of total disappearance and now pilot a craft like that? And the more they watched, the more the impossible became undeniable. Whoever Ghost Rider was, they were alive, aware, and unafraid. The next transmission broke the tension with a soft, human note. "Do you want to see something?" The F-22 pilot stiffened. "What the hell, show us what?" Harris muttered. In response, the unknown craft did the impossible. It shot upward faster than the jets could track, then spun in a controlled barrel roll above the clouds. Lightning flashed in the distance, and in that moment the sky itself seemed to pause. The craft's silhouette was only visible for a heartbeat, a slender figure in a canopy, small and impossibly precise. Harris and Lawson exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Whoever this was, it was a child. A child alive against every law of nature and military protocol. And then the voice came again, this time tinged with something new, humor. "Not bad, huh?" Lawson's hand trembled on the stick. "God, it's a kid." Harris's stomach dropped. "No, it can't be. That child died 5 years ago." Somewhere far below the storm-streaked sky, the desert itself seemed to hold its breath. Ghost Rider twisted, dodged, and leveled in a maneuver that left both F-22s straining against gravity, engines screaming. The boy's voice, calm, gentle, precise, cut through the tension. "Do you trust me yet?" The jets faltered. Instruments went haywire. Even the most experienced pilots had no answer, no protocol, no experience for this. And in that instant, the impossible became terrifyingly real. A child declared dead, trained in secret, unseen for half a decade, was now rewriting the rules of air combat. As Ghost Rider disappeared into a veil of clouds, leaving only faint radar traces and the echo of that human, impossible voice, Harris leaned back, pale and shaking. We have to report this." "Right, this is." Lawson cut him off. "We can't, not yet. If this gets out, they'll lock him up, or worse, we just follow." Somewhere above the desert storm, a boy who had been written off as dead at 6 smiled faintly, adjusting the controls. Years of training, years of waiting had led to this moment. And even though he had no idea what the military would do next, he knew one thing with perfect clarity. He was alive, and nothing, not protocol, not radar, not disbelief, would stop him from proving it. And for the first time in 5 years, someone in uniform uttered the words that made the blood run cold. "Ghost Rider is real." The storm rolled closer, winds whipping at the stealth jets and shaking the desert below. Lightning flashed, illuminating the craft in silhouette. The next move would determine everything, whether Ghost Rider remained a ghost in the sky, or whether the world below would finally see what had been impossible all along. And then silence. For just a heartbeat, the sky waited, and somewhere in the storm, a boy declared dead at 6, prepared to make the impossible undeniable. Marissa Cole had spent the past 5 years chasing shadows. Every memory of Ethan, every photograph, every whispered lullaby in the dark was both a comfort and a knife to her heart. The world had labeled him gone, a statistic in hospital files, a tragedy filed away under accidental death. But Marissa never stopped searching. She had felt him, always, somewhere beyond the limits of human understanding, alive in a place no one could see. That night, as Nevada's desert wind whipped against the small kitchen windows, she froze mid-sip of lukewarm coffee. A faint buzz crackled from her old, unsecured radio scanner, a relic she had once used to eavesdrop on air traffic frequencies. Static at first, then a voice. Clear, calm, familiar. "Mom!" Her heart stopped. Coffee splashed across the counter. The kitchen faded, the floor seemed to drop away, and for a heartbeat she could only stare at the tiny speaker. Her knees buckled. "Ethan," she whispered, voice trembling, shaking her body with disbelief. The voice continued, now steady, composed, impossibly precise. I'm up here. I need you to stay calm. I'll explain everything. Please listen." Marissa dropped the scanner, hands shaking uncontrollably. Tears streamed down her face, unbidden, as years of grief, hopelessness, and denial collided in an instant. She was hearing her son, her living son, 5 years after his death, and he was alive, flying, somewhere above the desert. Meanwhile, in the classified Nevada operations room, the F-22 pilots were still grappling with Ghost Rider's impossible maneuvers. Radar had lost him again, but the pilots knew he had not left. They felt it in their bones, in the precision of his previous movements. No human pilot could execute turns like that without massive G-forces tearing their bodies apart. And yet, somehow, Ghost Rider controlled his craft like an extension of himself. The command officer slammed his fist on the console. "We need ID. Who authorized this flight? Who the hell is in that craft?" Technicians scrolled through classified personnel files, experimental aircraft programs, and missing pilot reports. Nothing matched. Every trace of authorization vanished as if it had never existed. And yet the F-22 pilots, trained for every eventuality, were paralyzed. There was no playbook for a child pilot who had been declared dead. Back in her home, Marissa fumbled with the scanner, trying to trace the signal. Her mind raced, memory by memory, piecing together fragments of impossible stories she had long dismissed. The small shiver in his hand at the hospital, the flutter of life she had felt in the ambulance, the faint lullaby she had sung to him, which, somehow, was remembered in a voice above the desert sky. "Mom," the voice whispered again, almost shyly, "I didn't want you to worry. I had to stay hidden until I was ready." She sank into the chair, gripping the scanner, sobbing. "Ethan, my baby, how?" "I'll explain," he said, steady, patient, a whisper of the child she had held in her arms. "But I can't come down yet, not safely. They're watching. I'm not alone." Miles above, Ghost Rider's craft twisted through clouds, anticipating maneuvers that would break normal physics. He had been trained, carefully, secretly, in ways the world could never know. Every flight, every calculation had been survival and preparation, instilled by someone he could barely remember, a figure shadowed by secrecy, teaching him to control a craft that could outpace jets, evade radar, and stay invisible to everyone except the few who would listen. Back on the ground, the F-22 pilots were scrambling to coordinate intercepts, but nothing worked. Every attempt to lock onto Ghost Rider failed. Their instruments glitched, their heads spun, and fear crept into their bones. Harris finally muttered, almost to himself, "We're chasing a ghost, literally." And that's when the first breakthrough came. A low-frequency analysis of the audio from Ghost Rider's transmission revealed background noise, an eerie mechanical hum interlaced with something far more organic. It wasn't a plane alone. It was a machine linked to a human consciousness. Someone, some entity, had merged a child with the aircraft itself. And suddenly, the impossible took a new, horrifying turn. This wasn't just a child flying. This was a child enhanced, trained, preserved, in ways the world was never meant to see. Marissa's mind reeled as she realized what this meant. Someone, government, military, experimental, had kept her son alive. Somehow, against every law of biology and medicine, he had been trained, hidden, and allowed to grow 5 years beyond the death everyone had mourned. Every instinct screamed danger, yet the faint, familiar tone of her son's voice calmed her fear. He was alive, somehow, improbably, defying everything. The storm above the desert was building. Lightning danced across the dunes, casting fleeting shadows of the F-22s as they tried to predict Ghost Rider's next move. And then, over the secure military channel, the voice returned. "Do you see them?" Harris and Lawson froze. "Who?" Harris asked, voice taut. "The jets below," Ghost Rider said, calm as ever. "They're not trying to hurt me, not yet, but I have to be careful. You're close, too close." The pilots stared at one another. Logic screamed protocol, but instinct screamed caution. They had never felt fear like this before, not from another human, not from a jet, not from combat. But this was different. Ghost Rider wasn't just piloting an aircraft. He was controlling them, anticipating every move. He wasn't a child. He wasn't fully human, or at least, not in the way the world understood human limits. On the ground, Marissa gripped the scanner, tears blurring her vision. "Ethan, I don't know what to do. I can't get to you." "You don't have to," he said softly. "Just listen. I'm alive. I know it's impossible. I know you've grieved, but I need you to trust me. I can't come down, not yet. But I promise, Mom, I'll find a way." Her chest ached, a strange mixture of relief and terror. He was alive. She had her son back. But the questions, where had he been? Who had trained him? Why the military secrecy? Gnawed at her. And the storm outside seemed to mirror the storm in her heart, rising, unpredictable, dangerous. Meanwhile, in the command center, the impossible was acknowledged as fact. Ghost Rider was no longer speculation, no longer a rumor whispered among pilots. He was real. A child declared dead, a phantom above the Nevada desert, moving with precision and intelligence no protocol could contain. And the military had no way to reach him, no tools to control him, no idea what he was capable of. The storm rolled closer, lightning sketching the desert in harsh, flickering lines. Ghost Rider's craft disappeared into the clouds, leaving only a trail of impossible movements, a voice on the wind, and a room full of pilots who could only watch. And back in the kitchen, Marissa's hands shook. gripping the scanner as a single thought burned in her mind. He's alive, and no one can stop him, not the military, not science, not death itself. The voice crackled one last time before silence swallowed it. Mom, I'll find a way to come home, but tonight you have to wait. And in that waiting, every heart, her own, the pilot's, the entire operation held its breath, knowing the storm above wasn't just weather. It was the first sign of a force no one had been prepared for, a boy once declared dead, now alive, unstoppable and untraceable. Somewhere in the desert, a ghost waited, and the world, blissfully unaware, was about to meet him. The desert sky burned with a bruised orange twilight as the F-22 pilots climbed higher, chasing a silhouette that refused to exist. Lieutenant Harris's chest ached, the adrenaline in his veins making every heartbeat thrum like a drum of war. Beside him, Sergeant Lawson gritted his teeth, staring at the blank radar. Every instrument suggested Ghost Rider wasn't there, but their eyes, trained for a lifetime of split-second reactions, told them the opposite. Somewhere ahead, a craft moved as if carved from shadow and lightning, obeying no laws but its own. Altitude, Harris asked, his voice tight. Impossible, Lawson muttered. It's moving too fast, too precise. No human can. Then the comm crackled. A voice, calm and eerily familiar, cut through the static. Relax, I've got you. The words made both men flinch. Every fiber of their training screamed to lock on, to identify, to neutralize. But something in that tone, the subtle warmth, the childlike cadence behind the calm, made them hesitate. The voice wasn't just human, it was personal. And in that moment, the impossible became intimate. Below, the desert stretched endlessly, shadowed by thunderclouds rolling in from the mountains. Lightning arced across the horizon, illuminating the sleek craft for the briefest fraction of a second. Harris's jaw went slack. There it was, small, elegant, almost fragile, yet moving with a precision that tore apart every protocol he had ever learned. The silhouette twisted, rolled, and climbed with a fluidity that mocked the limits of physics. Lawson's hand hovered over his stick, hesitation etched into every movement. God, it's like it's thinking 10 steps ahead. It's anticipating us. Do you trust it? Harris whispered, almost to himself. Lawson shook his head. I don't know if I can. The voice spoke again, lighter this time, tinged with humor. You don't need to, just keep up. Don't fall behind. The jets accelerated, pushing engines to limits they hadn't dared in years. But the craft Ghost Rider twisted through clouds as if gravity itself were a suggestion. Harris's HUD flickered. Instruments surged and dropped, struggling to track a target that should not exist. Every maneuver Ghost Rider executed seemed impossible. Loops that would have shredded a human spine, dives that would have burned jet engines to ash, yet the boy controlled it with uncanny precision. Somewhere deep in the operations center, analysts whispered in disbelief. The background hum of Ghost Rider's craft contained anomalies they had never encountered, energy signatures, airflow patterns, even faint electromagnetic pulses that interacted with the F-22 systems. It wasn't just a plane. It was a hybrid, a machine fused to a human mind, and that mind belonged to a child declared dead 5 years ago. Back on the ground, Marissa's hands shook as she listened to the faint transmissions bleeding through unsecured channels. She could hear him, clearer now, more confident, every word like a lifeline through the storm of fear and longing. I know you're trying to catch me, he said, almost teasingly, but you'll have to do better. Tears blurred her vision. Ethan, please come home, she whispered into the receiver. I will, I promise, he replied, a soft smile in his voice audible through the static. But not yet. There are things I need to do first, things I need to prove. The F-22 pilots were now in a full pursuit, instruments screaming at the impossible velocities Ghost Rider achieved. Harris's stomach churned. We have clearance to engage, he asked, voice tight. Command's reply was terse. Do not engage unless hostile. Identify first. Risk assessment, unknown. Proceed with caution. Harris glanced at Lawson. Unknown. Unknown doesn't even begin to cover this. Above the desert, Ghost Rider executed another impossible maneuver. He rolled upside down, banking sharply, appearing and disappearing from view in a blink. Lightning arced nearby, illuminating the boy's silhouette through the canopy, small hands, calm posture, eyes fixed ahead. Every instinct Harris and Lawson had screamed at them that the craft should have torn apart. Yet Ghost Rider remained flawless, untouched, unbroken, commanding the sky like it belonged to him. The voice returned, calm, soft, with a hint of mischief. "See, you're keeping up not bad." Harris shook his head. How is this possible?" Lawson's fingers tightened on the stick. "I don't know and I don't want to know, but we're witnessing something extraordinary, something we're not ready for." Back at her home, Marissa's mind raced. Each word, each transmission felt like a puzzle she had to solve. Who had kept Ethan alive? Who had trained him to fly like this? How had a boy declared dead become something more? And the most terrifying question of all, what did the military want from him now? In the operations center, the chaos was escalating. Officers and analysts scrambled, piecing together fragments of radar, audio, and eyewitness reports. Ghost Rider's craft was unregistered. No authorization existed. No flight plan. And yet it maneuvered with such intelligence that it was clear the pilot was no ordinary child. Whoever, or whatever, was behind this had pushed the boundaries of human potential in secret. The storm above the desert intensified. Thunder roared like the war drums of some unseen army, and lightning illuminated the sky in blinding flashes. Ghost Rider twisted through the tempest, every movement precise, every calculation perfect. And then, for the first time, the craft did something new. It hovered, paused midair, just above the cloud line as if waiting. Harris and Lawson stared, jaws tight, hearts racing. What is it doing?" Harris asked. The voice crackled, almost gentle now, reverent. "Watch closely, you might learn something." Suddenly, the craft executed a slow, controlled dive into the heart of the storm, banking sharply, leaving the jets scrambling to maintain position. The air shimmered around it, heat and friction bending light. Harris's HUD screamed warnings, alarms blaring. Yet Ghost Rider remained untouched. It was as if the storm itself bowed to the pilot's will. In the desert below, lightning struck a distant ridge, illuminating a figure watching from the shadows. A woman in military fatigues, face obscured, scribbled notes into a field log. She whispered under her breath, "He's not just alive. He's beyond everything we predicted." And then the unthinkable happened. Ghost Rider's craft twisted, rolled, and leveled in a sudden, breathtaking display. From the canopy, Harris and Lawson caught a glimpse, a flash of a small boy's face, pale but determined, eyes wide with focus and fear tempered by training. In that instant, everything became real. This was not a ghost, not a legend. It was a child, alive, defying death itself, commanding a machine meant for the elite, and proving that everything the world had believed about life, death, and human potential was wrong. The storm raged around them, engines screamed, and the desert below waited, holding its breath. Ghost Rider hovered for a moment, then disappeared into the clouds, leaving the F-22 struggling to track the Phantom. Harris muttered, voice trembling, he's a ghost, and yet alive." Lawson swallowed hard, and we just watched it happen. Marissa gripped the scanner, heart pounding. Somewhere above, her son was alive, untouchable, defying everything. And for the first time in 5 years, hope and fear collided in her chest like twin storms. And then silence. The storm had passed, but the desert sky still held its breath. Ghost Rider had vanished, leaving only the echo of a child's voice. The knowledge that someone declared dead had returned, and the terrifying certainty that no one below, military or civilian, had the power to stop him. Somewhere in the quiet aftermath, the desert waited. The F-22 pilots, hearts still pounding, knew the chase was only beginning. And Marissa, trembling, whispered to the empty room, "Ethan, what have you become? The morning after the desert storm, the Nevada Operations Center buzzed with a tension that refused to dissipate. Officers, analysts, and pilots, men and women hardened by decades of service, hovered over screens, staring at data that defied every principle they had spent a lifetime mastering. Ghost Rider was no longer a phantom rumor or a fleeting anomaly. He was real, and he had been hiding in plain sight for 5 years. Colonel Dawkins, a man whose reputation for ironclad discipline rivaled his fearlessness, slammed his hand against the console. "We need to know who authorized this flight. I don't care how classified it is. Pull everything." Technicians scrolled frantically through encrypted files. Experimental aircraft programs, missing pilot reports, classified medical research, all vanished. Every trace of authorization, every record of Ghost Rider's existence had been meticulously erased. For the first time in decades, the military faced a blank wall where a child pilot should have been documented. "Sir," one analyst said quietly, "there's something unusual. The flight logs we've found suggest a neural link between the pilot and the aircraft. It's like the craft is responding to thoughts, not inputs." Dawkins froze. A child controlling a stealth jet with their mind. "Yes, sir. And the control precision, it exceeds human limits. It's impossible." Meanwhile, Marissa Cole had spent the night sleepless, packing her living room, staring at the old scanner in her hands. Every fragment of Ghost Rider's transmissions replayed in her mind. The calm, confident voice of her son, alive, articulate, commanding a craft she had never imagined he could pilot, was proof she had clung to for 5 long years. Her grief had never fully left her. It had transformed into something sharper, more desperate, a need to find answers. The faint hope she had clung to as a mother had never wavered, even when everyone else had accepted Ethan's death. And now, finally, she had heard his voice again, clearer than ever. But this time, the reality was far more complex than she could have imagined. The military was moving faster now. Analysts pieced together fragments of erased programs, uncovering a network of clandestine research projects. Hidden beneath the surface of civilian hospitals and experimental flight facilities were operations designed to sustain children with catastrophic injuries, children who should have died. The files revealed the impossible. Ethan Cole had been part of a secret initiative, medical, military, and experimental, aimed at preserving life beyond conventional limits. A child declared dead at 6 had been kept alive through experimental technology, trained in isolation, and eventually integrated with an aircraft capable of neural synchronization. The program had vanished from records after a pilot's mysterious disappearance 5 years prior. And now that child was airborne, a ghost in the desert sky, calling himself Ghost Rider. Marissa's hands shook as she read. She had suspected something extraordinary, something beyond natural survival, but the scope of it left her breathless. The boy she had mourned, prayed for, and whispered to in the dark had been raised in secret by forces she couldn't even begin to imagine. Her son was alive, but he wasn't just alive. He was extraordinary, engineered, trained, a living weapon hidden behind layers of silence. Back in the sky, the F-22 pilots continued their futile chase. Harris and Lawson were beginning to understand that this pursuit was no ordinary intercept. Ghost Rider was not just flying. He was testing them, anticipating their reactions with precision, his childlike voice a subtle reminder that this was a mind unlike any they had ever encountered. "Sir," Harris said over the comm, his voice tight, "we're running out of options. Every maneuver we make, he's already countered it before we even act." Lawson swallowed hard. "It's like he can read our thoughts, predict them, control us." Dawkins, on the ground, clenched his jaw. "We don't even know if he's human. We've never seen anything like this. I want everything documented. Now." Somewhere above the desert, Ghost Rider's craft twisted, rolled, and leveled midair. He glanced briefly at the radar displays he had memorized from simulations and past missions. He was testing, learning, pushing the limits. Every movement was calculated, precise. But beneath the control, there was still a child's heart. He remembered the nights spent alone, practicing maneuvers in secret, hearing nothing but the hum of engines and the whispers of those who raised him in silence. And then he spoke softly through the comms. "Mom, I've learned a lot, but I need to know I can trust you too." Marissa froze, tears blurring her vision. "Ethan, I trust you with my life," she whispered, voice trembling. "Just come back to me." The voice replied, steady and calm. "I will, but I have to finish something first. Someone been watching, testing. I need to show them I'm ready." Below, the storm of military bureaucracy collided with the mystery of a boy who should have been dead. Analysts traced flight logs, attempted simulations, and reconstructed the fragments of erased programs. Each discovery revealed more of the impossible: neural integration with an aircraft, cognitive acceleration beyond any known human limits, and physical training that would have been lethal for a normal child. Ghost Rider had been prepared for something far beyond ordinary combat. Marissa felt a mix of relief and fear. Her son was alive, but the world that had kept him in the shadows, government, military, and unknown entities, had made him into something other than a child. A weapon, a ghost, a living enigma. She realized she had to be careful. She couldn't approach him recklessly. She couldn't alert anyone who might see him as a threat. And yet the longing to hold him, to see him safe, was almost unbearable. Harris and Lawson, still chasing the impossible, began to notice patterns. Ghost Rider wasn't just evading them, he was teaching them something. Every maneuver had a rhythm, a cadence, a lesson embedded in precision. It was almost as if the boy wanted them to understand that he wasn't a threat yet. He was alive, aware, and learning, but he was also asserting control in a way that left everyone below powerless. And then it happened. Ghost Rider descended into a low pass over the desert, so close the pilots could almost see the faint outlines of his small frame through the canopy. Lightning flashed, illuminating the craft in brief, jagged brilliance. Harris froze. There it was, small hands, calm eyes, determination carved across a young face. A child declared dead at 6, now 5 years older, piloting a craft that dwarfed his frame, his presence commanding the sky. Lawson swallowed hard. It's him, it's the kid." The craft leveled, hovering over the desert as if defying gravity itself. The voice crackled again, soft but unwavering. "I'm ready. Are you ready to see me?" The F-22 pilots hesitated. Every instinct screamed caution, every protocol demanded engagement. But something in that voice, something familiar, human, and impossibly real, made them pause. The impossible had returned, alive and unbroken. Marissa's heart raced. Her son was there, alive, defying death. And for the first time she realized the full weight of what had happened. Ghost Rider wasn't just her son. He was a living testament to secrecy, to the limits of science, to courage beyond understanding. But with every passing moment, the danger of discovery loomed. Military authority, classified programs, and those who had kept him hidden would stop at nothing to control him. And the boy who had been declared dead at 6, hovering over the Nevada desert, knew it. He was no longer just surviving, he was preparing. And the first real challenge of his life, one that would test trust, courage, and the fragile line between childhood and legend, was about to arrive. Above the Nevada desert, the sky was a canvas of violent color, dark storm clouds swirling with streaks of lightning, shadows racing across sand dunes, and the distant glow of the setting sun. The F-22s pursued Ghost Rider with everything in their arsenal: radar locked, engines at full throttle, protocols stretched to the limit. Yet every tactic they employed, every maneuver they attempted, was anticipated, countered, and outpaced. It was as if the boy piloting the craft could see through their eyes, predict their thoughts, and manipulate the storm itself. Lieutenant Harris gritted his teeth, sweat rolling down his temples. "He's controlling the airspace. He's anticipating us." Sergeant Lawson's voice was tight, almost in disbelief. "I've flown top-secret combat simulations. Nothing has ever moved like that." The storm above thickened, whipping clouds into roiling chaos, casting jagged shadows on the desert below. Ghost Rider's craft glimmered in fleeting flashes of lightning, sleek, impossibly small for the control it wielded, yet precise in every motion. The boy inside was calm, eyes fixed on instruments that weren't instruments at all, hands moving with a grace that defied his size and age. Every turn, every dive, every roll was a calculation he had learned in secret. Years of training, hidden from the world, were unfolding above a desert that had long since forgotten him. And then over the secure comms, the voice came. "Mom!" Marissa Cole, listening from her kitchen hundreds of miles away on a scanner she wasn't supposed to have, froze. Her fingers gripped the receiver so tightly they ached. Her heart, long starved of hope, surged with impossible joy. "Ethan, is that you?" "Yes," the voice replied, steady, gentle, but laced with urgency. "I'm here. I'm okay, mostly." She swallowed hard. "Mostly? Ethan, listen to me. You're alive, you're alive. I've missed you for 5 years." "I know," he said softly, "and I've missed you too, but I can't come down yet. Not until I'm sure they can't hurt us or you." Marissa's chest tightened. "Ethan, I don't care about danger. I just want to hold you." Above, Ghost Rider executed a rapid barrel roll, diving through a pocket of lightning that tore across the storm-laden sky. The F-22s struggled to maintain formation, alarms screaming as systems overloaded from the violent turbulence. Every instrument in the jets flagged warnings of impossible velocities, and the pilots' hearts pounded in unison with the storm. Harris shouted, voice strained, "He's going too fast. He's not human." Lawson's hands shook. "No, not human, but he's a kid. That's the terrifying part. That little boy is beyond comprehension." Ghost Rider banked sharply, his craft glinting in the erratic lightning. Every move was flawless, every input precise. And for the first time he allowed himself a flicker of childlike hesitation, just a heartbeat as he glanced at the ground far below. He remembered his mother's voice from the hospital, the warmth of her hands, the lullabies she whispered in the dark. He drew strength from that memory, letting it guide him through maneuvers that would have destroyed anyone else. "Mom," he said almost shyly, "I'm coming home, but I need you to trust me." Marissa's tears streamed freely. "I trust you with my life, Ethan. Please be safe." And then from the operations center, an officer barked orders. "Engage with caution. Do not let him out of your sight." Harris and Lawson's fingers tightened on the controls, hearts racing. But engagement was no longer simple. Every attempt to lock onto Ghost Rider was met with interference, electronic anomalies, and physical maneuvers beyond the capacity of man or machine. He was not just avoiding them, he was teaching them, guiding them, testing them. Ghost Rider's craft dove into a narrow canyon, weaving between jagged rock formations with the precision of a predator. The jets followed, risking collision, engines screaming, radar useless in the tight corridors. Harris's stomach churned with fear and awe. He's showing off, teaching us. But why? Lawson's jaw was tight. Because he can. And he knows he's in control. Every instinct we've trained for, he's rewriting it. Somewhere below, in the shadows of the desert, an unmarked vehicle carried a figure in military fatigues, notebook in hand. She whispered, voice low, "He's not just surviving, he's mastering everything. Faster, smarter, stronger, and he remembers." The storm roared above as Ghost Rider executed a maneuver that left both F-22s struggling to recover. Lightning illuminated the canopy. Harris's eyes widened. For a fleeting moment he saw the boy, small, pale, calm, eyes burning with focus. And then the craft twisted, vanished into clouds, leaving only static and the faint echo of a voice. "Almost there, stay calm." Harris's fingers trembled. He's going to come out of this." Lawson nodded, though fear lingered in his eyes. "And when he does, what then? How do we even respond to a child who can do this?" Marissa gripped the scanner so tightly her knuckles whitened. "Ethan, I'm right here. I'm listening. Please come home." The craft re-emerged from the storm with impossible grace, gliding just above the desert floor. The F-22s scrambled to maintain visibility. Ghost Rider's voice came again, calm, commanding, childlike. "I'm cold," he whispered, almost to himself, yet carried across the comms. "And I've been waiting a long time to see you again." Marissa's heart lurched. "Ethan, I'm here. I've been waiting too." The storm swirled violently, as if sensing the reunion, lightning flashing across the sand like fingers of fate. Ghost Rider's craft hovered, engine humming softly, canopy tinted but revealing the small figure inside. He was steady, focused, yet vulnerable, still a child despite the years of isolation, training, and impossible survival. Harris and Lawson exchanged a glance. We can't fire. Not now," Harris muttered. "There's a human in there, a kid." Lawson nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, and if we try, we'd be making the worst mistake of our lives." The storm continued to rage, but for the first time in 5 years, Ethan Cole's voice carried hope instead of fear. He was alive, defying death, defying the impossible, and finally on the path home. Then through the static of the secure channel came a new sound, a faint mechanical hum intertwined with the child's voice. Ghost Rider had activated something hidden, something built into the craft. The jets faltered slightly, instruments flickering violently. The boys' training, the neural integration, the years of hidden preparation, it all began to reveal itself. The storm above and the desert below seemed to pause, holding its breath. The impossible was about to become undeniable. And in that silence, Marissa whispered, voice trembling, "Ethan, come home." The reply was steady, calm, resolute. "I will, but not yet. Not until they see what I've become." And the storm, electric, violent, and alive, was only the beginning. The desert lay beneath a fractured sky, clouds shredded by the fury of the storm, lightning etching sharp, fleeting patterns across the sand. Ghost Rider's craft moved with flawless precision, weaving between the chaos as if he were part of the storm itself. Lieutenant Harris and Sergeant Lawson followed, instruments screaming, adrenaline pounding, hearts hammering against the impossible. They had come to witness the unimaginable, and now the unimaginable was playing out in front of their eyes. "This isn't just a flight," Harris muttered. "This is testing us, testing everything we know." Lawson swallowed hard, eyes locked on the phantom craft. "Or warning us. I don't know which is scarier." Ghost Rider's voice crackled through the secure comms, calm yet layered with a strange authority that seemed to emanate from the boy himself. "I know you're there. I know what you can do and what you cannot. Stay steady. Don't panic. This is about control." Below, the military command center had gone from chaos to calculated determination. Colonel Dawkins barked orders to multiple units: radar sweep, intercept protocols, drone deployment, and ground-based communications lockdowns. Every maneuver they initiated was meant to contain him, to force him into visibility, to bring the child declared dead back into a world that had never expected his return. Harris's hands gripped the stick with tension. "Sir, this is no ordinary pursuit. We're talking about a kid in a jet he shouldn't even be able to handle, and yet he's doing everything perfectly." Dawkins' reply was curt, almost fearful. "Then proceed with caution. You don't engage unless he shows hostility. Repeat, do not engage." Ghost Rider twisted through a canyon, every turn precise, every maneuver a dance with physics itself. The jets followed as best they could, radar struggling, instruments failing. Harris and Lawson began to understand a terrifying truth. This was no child pilot. This was someone, or something, engineered, trained, and prepared to survive situations that would obliterate an ordinary human. Marissa Cole listened from her small, cluttered home, gripping the scanner so tightly her knuckles whitened. Every transmission, every whisper from her son cut through 5 years of grief and despair. Her heart raced. Ethan was alive, extraordinary, and untouchable, but she couldn't reach him. And yet, every word from his voice carried reassurance and urgency. "I need you to stay calm, Mom," he said, voice steady but layered with tension. "I'm about to do something big. You have to trust me." Her hands shook. "Ethan, I trust you, but what are you going to do?" He didn't answer directly. Instead, the craft banked sharply, diving into the storm, weaving between clouds as lightning flashed around him. The jets struggled to maintain formation, alarms screaming, HUDs flickering. Ghost Rider moved with a fluidity that made human pilots doubt everything they had been taught. "Sir," Harris muttered, voice tight, "he's doing things we can't even calculate. I've never seen anything like this." Lawson swallowed hard. "Neither have I, and if we try to intercept, I don't think we survive." From below, the unmarked vehicle parked in the desert's shadow moved silently. A figure in military fatigues monitored the scene, scribbling notes furiously. Her eyes widened as Ghost Rider performed a maneuver that no human, or even most experimental aircraft, could survive. "He's beyond everything," she whispered. "Beyond what we imagined, and he remembers." Ghost Rider hovered for a moment, the storm raging around him. His mind calculated every possibility, every potential threat, every unpredictable element of the F-22s. But beneath the precision, the control, the training was a child's heart. Fear, hope, longing, all interwoven with the weight of 5 lost years. And now, with his mother's voice reaching him across the void, he felt the pull of home stronger than ever. "Mom, I see them," he said quietly, almost to himself. "The ones who kept me hidden, the ones who trained me, they're here too, watching, judging." Marissa's stomach twisted. "Ethan, be careful. You don't know what they'll do." "I do," he replied softly, "and I'm ready." Suddenly, the storm seemed to respond. Lightning arced violently, illuminating the desert floor. Ground units scrambled to relocate, their vehicles momentarily blinded by the flashes. Ghost Rider executed a breathtaking dive, disappearing briefly into a thick layer of clouds. Harris and Lawson's instruments flickered, leaving only the faint echo of a voice. "Prepare yourself," Ghost Rider said calmly, almost teasingly. "You're about to see why I survived." And then it happened. The craft twisted midair in a sequence that seemed impossible. Energy fields, residual from the experimental neural integration program, interacted with the storm, creating a shimmering aura around the jet. Lightning arced toward the aircraft but failed to strike, drawn instead into the hum of the craft's systems. Harris and Lawson's eyes widened in awe and terror. Instruments overloaded. Engines screamed. And through it all, Ghost Rider remained unharmed, a ghost against the storm's fury. Harris muttered under his breath, "He's controlling the weather." Lawson swallowed hard. "No, that's not human." Above the storm, Ghost Rider steadied the craft, eyes closing briefly as if centering himself. 5 years of isolation, training, and secrecy had led to this moment. He wasn't just surviving. He was commanding the impossible, showing the world, or at least those who watched, the full measure of what he had become. The secure comms crackled again, and this time the voice carried resolve, authority, and a childlike hope all at once. "I'm coming home, Mom, but first they need to see me." Marissa gasped, tears streaming. "Ethan, just come back to me. Please, just come back." "I will," he replied, "but I can't yet. I have to finish this first. Trust me." Below, Colonel Dawkins observed the scene on monitors, face pale. "What is that kid capable of? I've never seen anything like this. He's rewriting every law we know about flight, about survival, about life." Harris and Lawson exchanged a glance, the unspoken question hanging in the stormy sky. How do you confront a child who is a weapon, a ghost, a miracle? The storm raged, the desert trembled beneath its fury, and Ghost Rider's craft hovered in the eye of the tempest, a small figure illuminated by flashes of lightning. He had become legend before the world even knew he existed. And now, the confrontation, inevitable, monumental, terrifying, was only moments away. Then silence. For just a heartbeat, the desert held its breath. Ghost Rider's craft shimmered in the storm, energy humming, instruments flashing, eyes steady. And in that pause, every observer, his mother, the F-22 pilots, the military, knew that the impossible had arrived. The boy declared dead at 6, hidden, trained, enhanced, was ready. And when he moved next, the world would never be the same. The storm had spent itself, leaving the Nevada desert glowing in the pale light of dawn. The jagged shadows of lightning still scarred the sand, a reminder of the chaos that had raged only hours before. Ghost Rider hovered above the dunes, his sleek craft shimmering in the early sun, engines humming softly like a heartbeat. The storm had tested him, the military had challenged him, and now, after 5 years of silence, isolation, and impossible training, the time had come to finish what had begun. Marissa Cole stood on the roof of her small home, the scanner pressed to her ear. Every muscle in her body ached with anticipation. She had spent 5 years living in fragments of grief, imagining possibilities, holding onto hope that defied reason. And now she felt the impossible. Her son was alive, he was out there, and he was coming home. "Mom," his voice familiar and calm cut through the static. "I'm here, I see you." Her knees buckled, tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "Ethan, I can't believe it, I ca." "Believe it," he said softly, a hint of a smile in his tone. "I've waited a long time to say that, to hear you say it." Above, the F-22 pilots hovered, unsure how to proceed. Harris glanced at Lawson, eyes wide. We can't interfere, not now, that's him, the boy." Lawson nodded, voice tight. "And if we try, we destroy him, we destroy what he's become." Ghost Rider descended slowly, every movement deliberate, every maneuver precise. The desert wind whipped around him, scattering sand in miniature tornadoes. Below, Marissa ran toward a clearing she hadn't known existed in her own yard, heart pounding as if it would break free of her chest. "I'm coming home, Mom," he repeated. "Just wait for me and stay calm." The craft touched the ground lightly, thrusters humming as it settled among the desert scrub. Marissa's breath caught in her throat. For a moment she couldn't move. And then, after 5 long, agonizing years, Ethan Cole emerged. The boy declared dead at 6 was now 11, slightly taller, hair mussed from the wind, eyes sharp and alive, yet still the child she remembered. His small hands reached out, trembling slightly as he ran toward her. "Ethan," she cried, dropping to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She clutched him, feeling the warmth, the life, the undeniable reality of him in her arms. "You're here. You're really here." "I told you," he whispered, resting his forehead against hers. "I never left, I just had to be ready. I had to survive for you." Below, the F-22 pilots hovered silently, watching the reunion. Harris whispered, I've never seen anything like this. He's human, and yet more." Lawson shook his head. "He's not just alive, he's something else, but he's still a kid. Look at him, look at how he's just hugging his mom." Back at the operations center, Colonel Dawkins and his team were struggling to process what had happened. Instruments, protocols, and plans had all failed. A child declared dead had returned, outmaneuvered the most advanced jets in the world, and walked away unharmed. "How is this possible?" Dawkins muttered, voice low, incredulous. "He shouldn't exist, and yet he does." Marissa held her son tightly, feeling the weight of years, of fear, of longing release in one overwhelming moment. "I thought I lost you," she whispered, voice cracking. "I thought I'd never see you again." Ethan shook his head. "You never lost me, Mom. I was always here, always listening, always waiting for the right moment." The craft behind them shimmered in the morning sun, a reminder of the impossible journey he had endured. The F-22s slowly lifted off, maintaining respectful distance, finally understanding that this child, this miracle, was beyond their authority, beyond their control. They had witnessed the impossible, and nothing would ever make sense again. Marissa pulled back slightly to look at him. "But why all of this? Who kept you? Who trained you?" Ethan's eyes darkened for just a moment, the childlike innocence giving way to something deeper, forged by years of secrecy and training. Some people wanted to keep me safe. Others wanted to use me. I had to learn, I had to survive, and I had to come back to you. Marissa's heart ached. You were alone for 5 years. I wasn't alone, he said softly, voice steady. I had to be ready for them, for anyone who might come for me, and now I'm ready. The storm's aftermath had left the desert eerily quiet, the sand still glowing from lightning strikes. Ghost Rider's craft hummed softly behind him, a reminder of the power he had mastered, the abilities no one else could comprehend. Marissa looked at her son, small but resolute, alive but extraordinary, and realized that the boy she had lost had become something the world had never imagined, and yet he was still her child. The military, still monitoring from a distance, began a slow reassessment. Every prediction had failed. Every protocol had been broken. And now they faced the undeniable truth. A child declared dead had survived, defied physics, outsmarted the most advanced jets, and returned home. The world was no longer ready for him. Ethan looked at his mother, eyes bright with unshed tears and determination. I'm coming back into the world, Mom, but not yet. I need to be myself first, and I need to make sure no one else can hurt me, or you. Marissa nodded, holding him close. I understand, just promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come back when you're ready. I promise, he said, small hands clutching hers. And I'll never leave again, not really. For a long moment, mother and son stood in silence, holding onto the miracle of their reunion, the desert stretching endlessly around them, the storm clouds dissipating into the dawn. The impossible had happened. Death had been defied, and in the quiet aftermath, love, hope, and resilience had won. The F-22s slowly receded into the distance, leaving only the hum of Ghost Rider's craft and the soft whispers of wind across the sand. Colonel Dawkins sighed, a mix of awe and fear heavy in his chest. Prepare a report, he muttered. This child is history, and no one is ready for what comes next. Marissa looked at Ethan, tears still streaking her face. You're home, she whispered. Yes, he said softly, resting his forehead against hers. I'm finally home. And for the first time in 5 long years, the boy who had been declared dead at 6, who had survived against every odds, who had become Ghost Rider above the desert sky, smiled with the freedom of a child who was alive, loved, and finally, truly home. The desert lay quiet, holding its breath, as if acknowledging the impossible. A child returned from death, unbroken, unstoppable, and forever changed. And somewhere in the vast silence of the Nevada desert, the world began to realize that legends could walk among them, alive, human, and extraordinary.